everybody, my name is Monica and I'm so excited to be doing this video. So I was actually inspired to do this video because I ended up in a parent Facebook group for the college that I attended, which is Ball State, and I saw a lot of parent questions and I was like, it would be so awesome if an alumni sat down and just did a video with not only like freshman year and like move-in advice, but also just like overall college advice, because I feel like I would give very different advice to like a senior in college than I would a freshman. So this is just your guide to college from a college alum, a recent college alum, and also it's your guide to Ball State. If you're someone who's going to Ball State, a lot of this advice might be a little bit more specific to Ball State. So if you're thinking about Ball State or if you're going into college at Ball State, these are some tips and tricks that I have for you. And also some of these questions I took directly from the Facebook page of the parent group. So if you have this specific question or your parent has this specific question, then you might find your answers here. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Also, for those wondering, I didn't say this in the intro, so I'm just interjecting. I studied theater with a concentration in education with a minor in marketing, and I graduated magna cum laude from my school. So I have a little bit of theater experience, a little bit of education experience, and a little bit of business school knowledge. Most of my friends were in the theater school, but I did have a couple friends that were kind of all different types of majors. So if you have any specific questions about any of those colleges, please comment below because I will happily answer. But a lot of this advice is coming from someone who has theater education and business as their background. So, and it's coming from someone who definitely prioritized homework and grades. So if that sounds like you, stick around. Okay, so we're gonna start with things that you should do before college even starts, before you've moved in, before classes start, like that summer before. These are some things that you should work on and focus on. First is just regular adulting life skills. Now, I am not at all shaming people who go into college not knowing how to do laundry or not knowing how to cook. Like, everyone grew up differently. So some people have those skills and some people don't. However, if you are someone who doesn't have those skills yet as a senior, I would definitely plan on spending the summer teaching yourself how to do laundry. Laundry is a big one. Just deciding what kind of detergent you like, what detergent works best on your clothes, how to wash like whites separately, how to wash delicates, things like that, like what gets dried in a dryer versus what has to dry flat and air dry, things like that. I was taught that as a child, and I feel like those things definitely helped me going in. But also I think it's smart to teach yourself how to cook things in the microwave. So like how to cook ramen, how to cook mac and cheese, different things that you think that you're going to be cooking in college. It might be beneficial to just practice some of those things. And then something I recommend that I definitely didn't do freshman year that I wish I did is teach yourself a little bit about finances and budgeting. I know that there's a required personal finance class for Ball State students, but not everyone takes it freshman year. So it might be smart to just learn about, the difference between debit and credit, how to budget your life, the different costs of things in the area, things like that. So you go in kind of having a little bit of financial knowledge. I feel like cooking, laundry, and financial knowledge are 3 skills that you definitely should bring into the school year for sure. Probably the biggest question that I saw throughout the Facebook pages is how to prevent overpacking, or what are things that your student brought that they didn't really use, etc., etc. The 2 things that I personally and other people around me overpacked was clothes and school supplies. Clothes is probably the biggest one. I feel like everyone brings so many clothing items their first year. But like, I got a shirt at orientation, I got a free shirt at my first football game, I got several shirts from different clubs and just various merch. I got a shirt from my LLC. So I got so many free shirts my first year, and I found myself kind of just wearing the same like 8 to 10 shirts throughout the first semester. So I feel like t-shirts especially are just, you don't need that many. I would say at least 10, but no more than like 15 shirts. And if you find yourself cycling through kind of the same few, then maybe the next year you come back, just bring those few, because I found myself just kind of re-wearing outfits. And then for school supplies, it definitely varies on what your major is, because I had a few professors who were like, I want to do a no-tech class. I want all notes to be taken by hand, etc., etc. So I had to buy a couple notebooks a year depending on what my teachers wanted. And I know that some teachers have specific requirements for notes, or you need a specific type of laptop, things like that. So I honestly would just like do your research and kind of look into that. And it might be you wait to buy school supplies until the year started and you kind of figure out what you need. But I remember I came into freshman year with like a binder, 2 notebooks, a bunch of pencils and pens, and I rarely used those. The things I found myself using the most were index cards to make flashcards, sticky notes to annotate my rented books, and then a few pencils and pens, and then I usually got like 1 or 2 notebooks for the year depending on what my teachers required. So that's what I would recommend. And then the last thing is, I see a lot of doubles. Like I see a lot of people not communicate with their roommate and then they show up with like 2 mini fridges. So I honestly would just recommend communicating with your roommate beforehand, and just say, hey, I'm bringing the fridge and the microwave for the dorm. You don't need to buy one. Or if your roommate is like, I have a TV, you don't need to buy a TV. So just stuff like that. And especially when you move to off-campus living, that is super helpful, because when you move off campus, you're supplying most of the furniture. And so it's helpful to communicate with your roommates being like, I'll get the toaster and the blender and all of that stuff. Although I will say you don't need a lot of those appliances for dorm living. For dorm, I would just recommend a microwave, fridge. Maybe a Keurig if you're a coffee person. But when I moved off campus was kind of when I started to buy more of those bigger appliances and more kitchen-y stuff. Don't buy that freshman year. But yeah, just communicate with your roommate or roommates and be like, what is everyone buying? What is everyone bringing? What do I need to get still? Just so you don't end up with duplicates of things, because that's something that I feel like a lot of people run into. That's an issue that a lot of people run into. And that just helps with overpacking. You don't have to bring all that extra stuff if someone else already has it. Okay, these next 3 tips all are related to like class scheduling. This first one is probably the #1 advice that I have given to every Ball State freshman that I have spoken to in the past 6 to 8 months. Get the earliest possible orientation time you can. Orientation is when you schedule all of your classes for Ball State. I don't know if every college is like that, but I went within like the first couple of weeks of orientation. And when I sat down, obviously my advisor was like, here's all the major classes you need to take. But I had some room left over for gen ed classes, which basically this just means the core curriculum that Ball State uses. You have to have a certain amount of credits from the core curriculum. So you need to be taking those gen ed classes. So I had two spots to put in gen eds, and I had so many more options. Like I had so many more class time availabilities. They were not full up. And my roommate went towards the end of orientation, and I remember during the first week, she was like, I'm so upset that you get to take all your gen eds, because when I got there, all of them were full. There was only like a couple left. So I recommend going super early, so that way all those gen eds are not full up and you're able to get all of the classes that you need. And then going along with that, everyone says to not take morning classes. I personally think that anything after the 3 p.m. window is worse, especially if you have a long break. Like if you have a class at 10 and then you don't have class again until 3, I feel like that middle portion of the day is just like you waiting to go to class, and it's arguably worse. I've seen online that people say 10 to 2 is the best window for classes. I would agree. I don't mind 9 a.m.s. I never had an 8 a.m., but 9 a.m.s, I had a lot of 9 a.m.s, and honestly, I didn't mind those. So I would say 9 to 2 p.m. is like the best time to take classes. I always tried to be done by like 1 p.m. and that was the best. Anytime I ended at 1 p.m., I felt so great because I had the whole rest of the day to do work, go grocery shopping, hang out with friends, and I had ample time to do that, and I didn't have to like go to class in that window. So I definitely recommend that. And then lastly, don't overload yourself on online classes. I know a lot of people see the appeal with online classes, but for me, what I've discovered is most of my online classes, I had to teach myself the material, and that's nothing on the teacher per se. It's just like how the class was set up and structured. It was a lot of just like me reading the textbook and then responding to it. So like I was teaching myself a lot of those things, and a lot of those classes were for my minor. And so I felt like when I graduated, I was like, a lot of these topics I don't know a lot about because I had to teach myself. So if it's like a major based class and you have an online or in-person option, I would go with in-person, just because if it's your major, you want to get the best out of that class and not have to teach yourself. However, if it is a gen ed class, like I had a couple online gen ed classes, and those ones I didn't mind because I was like, I'm not going to be using this as much as I would a major or minor class. I did see a lot of people talking about how they didn't get into their LLC, which an LLC at Ball State is basically like each dorm fits into a college. So like my freshman year, I stayed in Schmidt-Wilson, which is the Fine Arts LLC. And since I was theater, I fit into the Fine Arts space. But what I will say is it is very normal to not get into your LLC. It's also normal to not have a roommate that's the same major as you. If you went random, it's not super likely that your roommate will be the exact same major as you. Me and my roommate were both in the theater school, but we had different majors. So my roommate was a directing major. And honestly, I will say this, I was kind of grateful that I wasn't the exact same major as my roommate, because for me, if I had to have all of the exact same classes as my roommate and then come home and see them, like, you can't really talk about your day because your day was the exact same and you just see them 24/7, which some people like, but I personally really liked living with someone that was a different major because some of our classes were the same, so we were able to kind of like talk through our issues or struggles with those classes we had together. But then we also had our own separate classes that we were able to like swap stories about and just kind of talk about with each other, and we weren't seeing each other all of the time. So I personally liked that. So I know a lot of people are upset that they're not in their LLC or they're not with someone who's their major. I wouldn't worry too much about it, especially the LLC thing. You have so many opportunities to meet people within your major. There's also so many clubs that are specific to LLCs. Like there's so many education clubs, there's so many theater clubs. Like you will find your people regardless if they are in your LLC or not. Like there are so many ways to meet people. I promise it'll be okay. I know it's scary. I was literally terrified when I moved in. But you will find your people even if you're not in your desired LLC or with your desired roommate. It'll be okay. Okay. This portion of the video is going to be move-in tips. I don't have a lot because I feel like everyone does it differently. My family had already moved in someone before me. My older sibling went to Ball State and was 2 years older than me. So my parents had 2 years of move-in experience under the belt when I moved in. So my experience is probably different than some first-timers, but I do have a few tips. My number one tip is if you have to go to the store at all for any reason, whether it's to get groceries, pick up something that you forgot, get school supplies, do that early, if not first, because those stores fill up super quickly and also everything gets picked over. I remember when my older sibling moved in, we were looking for a shower curtain liner for them, and literally almost all of the stores were sold out of shower curtain liners by the time we got there, and it was like probably noon or like 1 o'clock. And I know for me, my mom wanted to get me like a little cart for my dorm freshman year, and there was maybe like 2 left when we got there. So if you are wanting to get stuff there, I would do that first thing right when you get there before your move-in time. Groceries, it's a little bit easier. You're just gonna have to deal with like long lines and just really busy stores. But what I would recommend for this is kind of split tasks up, especially if you're going with a large group or like your family. You know, keep someone in the room to kind of help you set things up, build any furniture, loft your bed, hang things up, and then send a group off to the store, make a list for them and say, here's what I want, and they can go and pick things up. And then if you discover that you need something, you can just call them and say, hey, can you also grab this while you're there? Because not only is it less people in the room, less overstimulating, but it's also just like speeding up the process a little bit. Another tip that I have for all the roommates out there. I moved in after my roommate, and she noticed that during the lofting bed process, my family and I were starting to bicker. We were getting overstimulated. We were all kind of grumpy. And she was like, me being in here is not helping the situation, so I'm just going to go sit out in the lounge. And that was honestly the best thing, because after she left, we were like, okay, like, we're not as stressed out because we don't have like an audience watching us move. So if you're a roommate who's already moved in, I would recommend giving your roommate some space, because it can get really overstimulating if you have like all these people in the room. And then also if your roommate is like trying to talk to you or like ask you questions, you can snap at each other, and that just starts your relationship with tension, and you don't want that. So I would recommend just being like, hey, I'm about to move in. I'm going to be really grumpy. Just so you know, this is not how I am. Just have that conversation, and then as roommates decide to give each other space. I did that for the rest of my move-ins. Like even for off-campus move-ins, I kind of like stayed in my area and was like, I'm not gonna do that unless my roommates explicitly were like, hey, I need help with this. Then I came and helped them. But I would just recommend giving each other your space, because move-in brings out a lot of just like high stress and emotions are running high. So it's better to just separate and then get to know each other later at the end when everything's kind of calmed down. And my last little tip for move-in is your parents do not have to do everything for you. Obviously everyone's situation is different, but I know for my parents, since they were moving in 2 kids at the same time, they were very much like, we cannot be here until like 6 p.m. Like we have to get home, and they had to drive because they didn't live close-ish. I mean, we lived close-ish, but it was still a decent drive. So my mom was very much like, I will help you set up the room. I'll help you hang up anything you need to hang up, and like build any furniture, loft your bed, do all the things. But things like hanging your clothes, putting books in a bookshelf, maybe even hanging posters up, like you can do those things yourself. And each year I got more and more independent. I feel like once my senior year hit, I was able to just like fully move myself in on my own. Because each year my parents kind of like stepped back a little bit and gave me more tasks to do. So I would say if you're really stressed about moving in quickly or like not being there all day, do all of the high priority tasks that you need your parents for first, and then take a little lunch break. And then after the lunch break, maybe be like, okay, all I need to really do now is hang up my clothes, so let's do a quick Target run, and then you guys can be on your way, or something like that. I think it'll just help with efficiency, and it gives you that little piece of independence, so you feel like you're doing something and you helped. Because I feel like during move-in, sometimes I felt like I was just standing there, not really doing anything, kind of just like watching my parents assemble furniture. And so it made me feel helpful when my mom was like, you're gonna like do all your clothes and stuff. So like it made me feel like I was actually doing something. So those are all of my move-in tips. Now let's transition into freshman year advice. My biggest phrase that I like to use to describe freshman year is quality over quantity. I feel like this can be applied to many things, but the 2 things that I felt like it qualified for me is friends. I met so many people freshman year, and all of those people were great, great people, but there were so many of them. And I feel like by the end of freshman year, it had slowly kind of like trickled out and dwindled down, and either I distanced myself from people or they distanced themselves from me. You just have to decide what qualities you want in a friend and what you deem a quality friend. And so taking those things into consideration, you will just eventually like grow apart from some of those people, because they're not the quality friend that you're looking for. And that's okay. Like that's very normal for freshman year. The people that I still speak to from freshman year are very high quality friends and are exactly what I'm looking for in those friendship relationships. Quality over quantity can also be used in the sense of clubs and extracurriculars. I cannot tell you how many people I met my first 2 years of college who were doing like 6 different clubs, and they were just super busy and overworked. Now, I will say, if you're someone who wants to be super involved, like one of my really close friends did a lot of clubs all 4 years and was super involved, and that was great and she loved it. But if you're someone like me who's like, how am I going to get schoolwork done and also be involved in clubs and also spend time with my friends and also have a part-time job and all of these things, I say quality over quantity. Pick 2 or 3 clubs that you've gone to some of the meetings and you really like and really enjoy, and put your time and effort into those. I was on the board of Theater Education Club all 4 years of college. I really dove into it. I tabled for them. I helped plan events. I did all their social media and marketing my junior year and some of my senior year. So I really locked into that. And for my first 2 years, I was on the social media team for another club. And then I realized that I was not getting the quality experience that I wanted. So I switched to a different club and kind of just like jumped into that. So like I said, quality experience of just a few clubs instead of like 10, I feel like you get a better experience and a less stressful experience. But again, it depends on the person. If you're someone who wants to be super involved and do a lot of things, that's also fine. But I always tell people quality over quantity. I only did like 2 or 3 clubs my whole 4 years and felt very fulfilled and felt like I got a lot out of school. I'm going to be pretty rapid fire with these last 2 tips. First is you will spend more money than you think. You will go in being like, I have a meal plan, I'm living on campus, it'll be fine, I'm not going to spend money. You will spend money. Your friends will be like, let's drive up to Indy for a day and spend a day there. Let's go to IHOP at 1 a.m. Let's DoorDash food and have a game night. Let's order pizza and watch a movie. Like those things all cost money. And I remember going in being like, I'm not going to spend that much. And I ended the 4 months of first semester and I was like, oh my gosh, I have literally spent so much money. And sometimes it's like on stuff you need too. Like sometimes you realize halfway through, you're like, oh, I really need this thing for class, or I really need this thing in my dorm or something like that. And then you end up buying that and it's just this whole thing. But again, some people are more on top of their finances too. I feel like part of the reason I spent so much is because I wasn't super knowledgeable about budgeting. So it got better. Once I moved off campus, I feel like I was a lot better about like budgeting because I had to take rent into account and all of those things. But yeah, be prepared to spend more than you think you're going to spend. And that kind of goes into number 2, which is don't try to plan out your free time because spontaneity always happens. I am a huge planner and always try to plan like my breaks, like what I'd be doing. And my friends would be like, let's go to IHOP. Let's go down to the lounge and play pool and like all those things. And I was like, well, I didn't plan for that, but I'm going to do it anyway because I want to have fun with my friends. So don't take a plan super seriously. Obviously plan out like your class schedule and like when you're going to take your meal breaks and like your morning routine and stuff like that. But after class is over, don't plan out things because you never know what's going to happen. I feel like freshman year is when most of the spontaneity happens. Everyone's like, let's go to this random event on campus, or hey, there's a Dippin' Dots stand, let's go hit up the Dippin' Dots stand, or let's go to IHOP, let's go to McDonald's, like all of those things, especially if you have a friend with a car. So just don't plan your free time too seriously. Have fun, live vicariously. These are the best 4 years. Just go do fun, random things with your friends. It will develop core memories, I promise. Some of my best memories are things I never planned for. So those are all of my freshman tips. Now we're moving on to general, just like college tips. Okay. Start networking right away. Literally like as soon as you start going to your classes, connect with your professor, see if your professor knows people in the industry that you can connect with. Get a LinkedIn, start connecting with alumni. We have an alumni network that we have access to. So like log on to that, see which people had the same major as you or the same interests as you. Set up coffee chats, which a coffee chat is essentially just like a 15 to 20 minute Zoom call, and plan questions. Be like, how did you get into the field? What kind of internships did you do? What do you recommend for someone who's wanting to work into your field? Start doing that early, because my biggest regret is I didn't start doing that until about halfway through my junior year. So I only really got a year and a half of networking under my belt when I definitely should have been doing more, especially since the job market has kind of shifted now and it all kind of matters who you know. Building that network as early as possible is the best. Going along with the job thing, save all of your work. Save any project you work on, any tangible experience, get photo evidence, get physical evidence that you did it, save it all into a folder that's tied to your personal email, not your school email. And then when it comes time to build a website or portfolio, or even just like in a job interview, if someone asks you about experience, you can pull these things up and say, here's what I did, here's the evidence that I did it. Because I did this a lot, but I didn't do it for every project, and I found myself kicking myself because I was like, this is a great project that I could talk about in this interview right now, but I have like nothing to pull from. So they just have to kind of like take my word for it. But yeah, save all of your work, especially my business major people. Save all of that. You do so many awesome and fulfilling projects as a business student that will boost you up in the job application process because you're getting this tangible experience. Save it somewhere, make sure it's accessible, put it onto a website when it comes time to create your website, because as a business student you will have to do that. Save all of it, keep it. I promise you, you will not regret it. It is so important. These next two are not super related, but mental health days are important. I think there's value in taking a mental health day, even if it's not from class. Like if your friends are asking you to go out and you're just like not feeling it, don't force yourself to do that. If you need to take some time and just rest and be home, that is okay. I know a lot of people are like, say yes, even if you don't want to go, but I'm very much like a, be healthy about it. Like, yes, say yes to things and say yes to opportunities, but like if it's actively going to damage your mental health more or make you feel worse, say no. It's okay. So I think monitoring your mental health and understanding your mental health is so important. The next thing is make sure that you and someone else's intentions align when dating. Something I ran into when I would just be talking to guys, or I only went on a couple of dates. I mainly just would like talk to guys on like dating apps or social media, is 80% of the guys that I talked to were just looking for hookups, and I'm not super into hookup culture. It's just not for me, but you know, it is for some people, and there's no judgment there. But I just felt like I had wasted all this time. So then I started being more upfront, and you know, right when I started talking to someone, I was like, just so you know, I am not interested at all in hooking up, and I will not judge you if you don't want to continue to pursue this or continue to talk to me. And I feel like a lot of those guys really respected that I did that. They were like, thank you for letting me know. I'm just looking for hookups, so I'm gonna move on. It just saves so much time. Especially you don't want to lead anyone on. Like if you're just looking for something casual and they want something more long-term, it just doesn't make sense to keep going on dates with them if you're not what they're looking for. So I feel like just being very upfront about what you're looking for right off the bat. Even like I know sometimes dating apps will like say like, oh, I'm looking for long-term. Like even if it says that, it's better to just ask and say, because sometimes people put that and then that's not actually how they feel. So just with dating, be very intentional about how you date and who you date and what you want from the other person. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about is partying. So I don't have a whole lot of experience with partying because my first 2 years of college, I was not into it at all. I didn't go to any frat parties, but I had friends that did. So I know a little bit about what frat parties are like, and I know a little bit about like what the theater parties are like because my roommate was very active in the theater party space. So I wasn't a huge partier. So in my experience, I think the bars, like going to the bars with friends, is more fun than going to a party, because all of the stories that I had heard from parties that my friends had told me, I was just like, this just doesn't sound interesting to me. But I like the bars because you're sort of in control. Obviously, sometimes you're not, but you're in control of what drink you're ordering, how many drinks you're ordering, who you're with. Whereas at a party, I feel like you're just like, okay, I just have to grab whatever they have. And then sometimes you can leave that drink unattended and all of those things. But that can also happen at the bars too. I just think the bars are more fun because they do all these fun events and like themed nights, and they have discounts and things like that. Like we would always go to karaoke Thursdays at the Chug. Like that's super fun. Like going to karaoke with your friends and having some drinks, super fun. I know that Brothers, one of the other bars, also did like $2 cheeseburgers, which is like super fun. So I had a lot more fun going to the bars than I did parties, but I feel like the parties that I went to were much tamer than actual parties. But even the tamer parties that I went to, I found myself having more fun at the bars. And then jumping off of that, I feel like small get-togethers with like your friend group are way more fun than parties. We would constantly host like game nights, or we would go to our friend's house for like a murder mystery night. And yes, there would be drinking. Yes, there would be alcohol like there would be at any other party, but I had so much more fun at those than I did at like the bigger parties that I went to. I went to a couple big parties throughout my time there, and I had so much more fun when it was just like a close-knit group of like 10 of us doing something, having drinks, hanging out. I felt like it was so much more intentional, and I could focus my time on like people within my friend group instead of just feeling overstimulated and having to like switch off between different groups to socialize with. I just felt like it was a lot. So if you're someone who's not a partier, it's okay. You'll figure stuff out. Like game nights and things like that are super fun to have, and they're not quite the same vibe as a party, but like they're your own version of a party. And that's what I found myself loving, is that, and then also going to the bars with my friends were like my go-tos, because I was not a big frat party girl. So it's okay if you're not a huge partier, especially at a school like Ball State that is a huge party school. Like I felt fully comfortable in my choices. I never once had FOMO for any of the parties that my friends went to. It just wasn't my vibe. I hope this helped you guys. If you have any more questions, or if you want me to kind of turn this into a series where I do this again, please let me know, because I love talking about my time at Ball State. I'm a recent alum. I graduated this past May. So obviously I really, really love Ball State and everything about it. But I'm also, you know, here for the nitty-gritty, and I can talk about the tough things about it, the things I struggled with, whatever you guys want to see more of and whatever you think would be the most helpful. Yeah, but make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you want any more videos, or if you want to see any more videos from me. And check out my social medias in the description box below. I post pretty frequently on there, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!